welcome fall and welcome y'all to Cold Rain's weather world, where we've got all the weather, including all the tropical weather. And that is where we're going to start today, out here in the tropical Atlantic. We've got a busy start to the week and to the autumn season from a weather perspective. The tropics are heating up, and a couple of areas out here in the tropical Atlantic bear watching for development over the next 5 to 7 days. Folks in the Caribbean, you need to pay attention because we could see a tropical cyclone move into your area, bringing unsettled weather, potentially tropical conditions for parts of the area. Even the east coast of the United States needs to pay attention to the weather forecast over the next 5 to 7 days. We've got significant severe weather potentially on tap for tomorrow. Even this afternoon, parts of the United States, lower 48, could see severe weather. We're going to look at that. And some areas of the country stand to pick up some beneficial rains over the next 5 days or so. We're going to look at all of that. I'm going to break it down like a fraction for you folks. We're going to start out here in the tropic where we have Gabrielle here in the middle of the screen virtually, and then this big red area, this tomato, cherry, whatever you want to call it, 70% chance of development as this tropical wave out here in the Atlantic moves into this area over the next 7 days, and then an orange area for a 40% chance of development for another tropical wave that is moving toward the Caribbean, toward the Leeward Islands here, and into this orange area. So we're going to watch both of these areas. Conditions are going to become more favorable over the next couple of days. For those keeping score at home, Hurricane Gabrielle is up to 90 miles per hour, moving north-northwest 10, and is forecast to take a hard right turn and head toward Europe in the next several days and get over in your vicinity in about 5 days. So you're going to have to watch this. Most of the models turn this back down to the south before it gets up toward Ireland and the UK. But folks, you need to pay attention to that. It's still 5 days away and things can change out there. Keep this in mind. The Gulf, the Caribbean, and the Western Atlantic are still quite warm, and we're looking at water temperatures running in the mid to upper 80s in spots, close to 90. So watch this area as we get on out in time. If tropical cyclones move into here, they're going to have fuel to work with, so just keep that in mind. Look at that. Boy, that is Gabrielle. She has developed rather nicely from that naked swirl that we saw just a few days ago. Max sustained winds at 90 miles per hour. Methinks this will be upgraded with the next advisory. Look at this symmetry here. We've got a very good outflow, and especially off to the north and to the east, but very cold cloud tops working around and an eye popping out. This is going to be a major hurricane, and it likely already is by looking at that satellite image. Here's the satellite image out in the Atlantic, and you can see Gabrielle showing up very nicely here. Here is tropical wave number 1. Here's tropical wave number 2. This one actually has the highest chance of development right now, but this bears watching, of course, as well, and a couple of the different models develop it in a couple of different ways. We're going to take a look at those right now. That's pretty much all that's going on. Another tropical wave moving off the coast of Africa. Nobody's concerned about that just yet, but we will watch it because it is tropical or hurricane season, and we need to pay attention to everything that's out here. Here's the GFS. We're going to take a look at the GFS first. GFS continues to scatter the board with lots of hurricanes and tropical cyclones over the course of its run. There goes Gabrielle as we get on out into Thursday, into Friday, Saturday. Look what happens here Saturday in the Caribbean. We spin up that first tropical wave. Look at that, right here north of the Bahamas. And what does the GFS do? It runs it straight up toward Cape Hatteras and takes it in to the Cape, and then runs it up the coast as we get on out into early next week. Now this is 5 to 7, 8 days away. So do we take this as gospel? No, we do not. We watch all the other guidance as well, and we'll keep our eyes on it, and then run it on out into La La Land, and we get about 10 to 12 days out. We see another system working into the Caribbean. That second wave will develop, and it strengthens it as it moves along Cuba, which is unrealistic. Thank you, GFS, for playing. But another tropical cyclone forming out here as well. So the GFS is very, very active in the Atlantic. The European runs Gabrielle out of the picture, and what does it do with that first tropical wave? Well, we're getting out here toward Thursday, Friday. Not very much, but that second wave, it begins to develop, and that's the one that has the highest chance of development according to the NHC. And there it goes. And eventually that first wave just kind of meanders around, and now you have 2 cyclones here, one that goes into Florida as a weak depression, and then another one that goes east of Bermuda, and then circles back around. Why does it do that? Well, more blocking up here in the north. The models are seeing blocking up here, and it wants to send at least block the escape route as that happens. We've seen that all summer long. So again, if something develops and starts to move to the north, we're going to watch what happens over Canada and south of Greenland to see if we get any blocking up there, because that could trap any cyclone that would get into that area and maybe migrate it back to the northeast. But again, this is way out in time. This is speculation. We don't even have a cyclone other than Gabrielle right now. And this is the AI model, okay? So we watch these AI models. Again, I'm not sold on their ability to predict tropical activity with a great deal of accuracy yet, but they did not develop the storm before Gabrielle that actually did not develop, even though the operational models did. So we have to keep that in the back of our minds. But it does develop that initial wave, kind of like the GFS does, and it runs it fairly close to the coast, but then shoots the gap between Hatteras and Bermuda and circles back around and takes another wave in here into the Caribbean and develops it into a weak cyclone and runs it up the coast and eventually brings it into around Cape Hatteras, Cape Lookout, somewhere like that, into North Carolina at 324 hours out. That will be October the 5th. And again, that's way out in time. But the point is, folks, tropics are heating up a bit. We've got different scenarios that are playing out. There's absolutely no way to know which of these waves will develop and where they will go with any certainty yet. But because we're seeing all these different models and the ensembles begin to show signals for this stuff more consistently, we're going to take it seriously that we've got activity to watch out here, and that we all need to start paying more close attention since we've been so dead for so long. I know it's lulled some of us to sleep, but it is hurricane season, and there is a lot of warm water out here. And if we can get low shear, and look at this, as we get on to about day 5, day 6, the shear in the Caribbean is below normal. That would be favorable for development. So there are going to be waves in this area. We're going to have to watch those because we have several factors coming together to make an environment favorable for development. European ensembles are actually picking up fairly well on both of those waves. The latter, fairly good signal for development, and the former as well eventually. This takes a little bit more time, but both of these waves, the European ensembles, have a fairly good signal for. The GFS likes the first wave a little bit better than the second wave. So bottom line, lot to watch, got to pay attention, and the Caribbean especially, you need to be on alert, especially the northern part of the Caribbean up here in the Leeward Islands, the Windward Islands rather, and U.S. and British Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, the DR, Haiti, and on into Cuba, the Bahamas. So pay attention very closely over the next 5 days or so. We'll get a better handle on what happens. In the meantime, got your weather IQ coming straight ahead. Then we're going to take a look at the severe weather threat over the lower 48 coming right up. Friends, we're 11 subscribers away from 6,000. Can you believe that? That's a lot of subscribers, and I really appreciate all the support. If you haven't yet subscribed, please consider doing so and turn those notifications on. Put these videos out every day, and so you get a chance to see the latest of what's going on. I break it all down, and we keep you in the loop. So like the content, leave a comment. I'll pray over you every single day, and if there's anything specifically I can pray about, please put it in the comment section. Let me know if you have any questions, and certainly let me know where you're commenting from. But right now, we've got to get to the weather IQ question. And fall is here. Won't be long. We'll be talking about winter weather. And here is a term that you hear often in winter: Alberta Clipper. What is that? Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But here's the question: what weather typically accompanies an Alberta Clipper? Okay, do you know? If you know, type it in the comment section or hazard a guess, or wait till the end of the show and I'll let you know what it is. But here are your choices: snow, hail, warm temps, or flooding. If you know the answer, as I said, type it in the comments, but I will let you know what it is and why at the end of the show. In the meantime, we're going to take a look at that severe weather threat coming up right now. After a decent break in severe weather, it's back for the next couple of days, really maybe maximizing itself tomorrow with potentially more significant outbreak of severe weather tomorrow than today, where we're looking at all hazards day possible. Even today we could see tornadoes, but tomorrow the tornado threat could increase depending on what happens today and how the convection evolves today and tonight. We're going to see several pockets of severe weather today, from Columbus down to Louisville, northern Iowa back to Lincoln, Nebraska, and then Garden City, Kansas back into Oklahoma City are the areas that we really need to focus on. But anywhere in the Central Plains and then through the Ohio and Tennessee Valley and then back in here into New Mexico could see isolated to scattered severe thunderstorms. Tornadoes are possible, particularly back here in Nebraska and Iowa, and then Kansas down into Oklahoma, but wind and hail are possible in other areas, particularly wind. And then tomorrow, again, there's going to be a complex of storms that moves through later this evening into Oklahoma and Arkansas. That's going to lay down a boundary. If that isn't disturbing the atmosphere too greatly tomorrow and we get some pockets of heating, we could really start to see some strong instability develop, create a conditional environment for supercells tracking along a boundary that would be laid down by the previous convective event, and enhance the spin and potentially elevate the severe weather threat here in Oklahoma, North Texas, and back through much of Arkansas. So you need to pay attention tomorrow and see if we get an enhanced risk for that tomorrow, but certainly the tornado threat would be elevated potentially. So that's what we're looking at over the next couple of days. In terms of how that'll play out, we'll look at the future radar in a minute. Here's what's going on today, though. Satellite imagery shows a lot of cloud cover and rain from Michigan all the way back down in through Little Rock down to just north of Dallas, seeing some scattered showers and even some thunderstorms under some of these higher cloud tops, and then basically central Wisconsin near Wausau, we're seeing another convective line move back through here, and just some scattered showers from central Montana all the way back down through the Four Corners region into San Diego. So that's what's going on out here today. So far, air quality not too bad for much of the nation. We've seen a little bit of an improvement over here in the east. Still got some wildfires burning up in the northwest with smoke around there, and then of course Southern California not looking all that great around the LA area. Now take a look at this. Here is the central portion of the country. We're going to run this radar out. This is the rapid refresh, and it kind of gives you an idea of what to expect later today as we get on through the morning. Still plenty of rain through the Ohio Valley and the western Tennessee, mid-Mississippi Valley, and of course through Montana and Wyoming as well. But we'll start to see scattered thunderstorms break out as we get on in toward later this afternoon across parts of Iowa and up into Wisconsin, back in toward Nebraska and Kansas. And you can see those evolve. We'll see a few supercells, and then everything will evolve into clusters as we get on into the overnight hours. And watch this. So we've got a line, a lot of energy in the mid-levels of the atmosphere, some low-level jets, and a couple of diffuse low pressures at the surface. So it's fairly complicated weather pattern in terms of just one big storm system. We don't have that. We have a lot of little pockets of energy and boundaries and things like that. Well, you'll see thunderstorms hang on through the night across much of the central portion of the country, and rain will continue. And this tomorrow morning you wake up, you're going to see rumbles of thunder and showers, probably less in the way of severe weather in the morning, working through Kansas City and on in toward Fayetteville, Arkansas. But look at this. As we get through the afternoon into the late evening hours, we'll start to see things pick up back again from Dallas and central Texas here near Lubbock, and then back on up through northern Arkansas back into the Tennessee Valley, and really cranks up as we get into the early evening hours. So we could see supercells. We could be watching tornado warnings pop up on your alert device, whatever that is, phone, weather, radio, TV, but you need to pay attention tomorrow. Then clusters and line segments will enhance the wind threat as we go on through the day as well. So that will proceed through the nighttime hours and likely be ongoing by the time you wake up on Wednesday morning, middle Tennessee back into northern Louisiana. So that's your severe weather threat, folks. You need to pay attention in those areas that I mentioned earlier all day tomorrow. Here's the actual upper level or mid-level flow. You've got this trough back here in the west that's working in. That'll be a weather maker as we go on through the week. Little trough working in here. That's what we're looking at this morning, and then another trough up here in the Great Lakes area. And so all of these little subtle features, and you see little pockets of wind, these brighter colors like that, right? So as those move along in the flow this afternoon, it will enhance the severe weather threat today. And then tomorrow, you can see tomorrow afternoon, we're here Tuesday afternoon. Look at those bright colors. That's what we're looking at to help enhance the mid-level flow, the shear, be strong instability at the surface if we get some heating, and potentially an elevated severe weather threat. Kind of see that boundary in the mid-levels lingering through the mid-Atlantic. And as we go on out through the week, kind of develop this long wave trough. So we've got an upper level low that starts to develop here over Lake Michigan, and then the trough sort of positively tilted like that. And you get another trough working into California, could bring you some unsettled weather back there. And then as we get on in toward Thursday and Friday, that trough slowly works east. We get winds out of the south, bringing in some rain along this frontal boundary. And so parts of the Tennessee Valley, parts of the Ohio Valley and the mid-Mississippi Valley could certainly see some beneficial rains where it's been dry. This frontal boundary and the southwesterly flow out ahead of it will bring rain and moisture up into the east coast. Not looking at a gully washer event there or any kind of a drought buster, but certainly could end up seeing an inch to maybe half an inch to an inch of rain along much of the east coast, which would be helpful as well. But you look at this, the main bright colors, the main jet is up here in Canada, and we continue to see that. That'll keep the cool fall air bottled way up there under this trough where it's cloudy and rainy. We'll see cool temperatures. As a matter of fact, if we take a look here at the rainfall total through the end of the week, looking at the lion's share of the rain, Central Plains up into parts of the interior, eastern Great Lakes really is probably the best way to describe that, with an inch, maybe 2 inches, and upwards of that in spots where we get training, but big broad area of a half an inch to maybe an inch across much of the eastern seaboard where we desperately need the rain with increasingly dry conditions. Watch this as we go through the week. There's that trough coming in to the Four Corners region out into the southern plains. We get into Wednesday and then Thursday and then Friday that moves east, and that's where the cool temperatures will be relative to normal across much of the south as we get on in through the end of the week into the weekend, with the exception of the east coast and then up across the northern tiers where we're going to find relative to normal much warmer temperatures with the jet stream up there, and you see a lot of ridging bouts in Canada. As a matter of fact, same pattern has been plaguing us for a while is going to continue. Look at this. We're not seeing a big pattern change, big ridging. This is where we are right now, big ridging up in Canada with general broad troughing and little waves of energy through the southern U.S. and central U.S. So we're going out toward Tuesday, Wednesday, more ridging in Canada. There comes that little trough. You can see the white colors here in the central U.S. representing that trough, and then we get some blues in here. But look, more ridging in Canada way out in time. What does that mean? Warm temperatures for the most part for the northern and central U.S. With little cutoff lows traversing underneath that as we go on out in time. And you get way on out in La La Land about 2 weeks out, and the ensembles tend to flatten everything out because chaos ensues, and it's just part of looking at ensemble forecasting. If we were to look at the operational European, we'd see a lot more in the way of troughs and ridges that would be more intense, but again, that wouldn't be all that accurate, would it? It's just one model and it doesn't know what's going on that far out in time. So that's the best we can do for now in terms of looking at it, but we're looking at the same pattern, ridging in Canada with little pieces of cutoff energy, and probably the central portion of the country up to northeast is where we'll see the lion's share of the heaviest weather over the next week, week and a half, something like that. Now, that's that. Now we're going to look at space weather and geological weather. Had an earthquake in California. We'll take a look at that. Space weather has been quiet, but we may find ourselves back in minor geomagnetic storm conditions. G1 is the lowest level, except for G0, which is none, but we could see minor geomagnetic storm conditions occur in the next 24 hours. That could elevate the chances for aurora production. We'll look at that chart in a second, but why is that happening? Well, this coronal hole that was facing us is now turned away, as coronal holes are wont to do. Will typically send enhanced solar wind, and that interferes with our magnetic field and could create geomagnetic storm conditions. KP index is creeping up, as you can see by those bars here. Proton flux is flat. X-ray flux is pretty flat too, meaning no solar flares being released from sunspots that are on the disk. Still not looking at a high chance of aurora, but if it does, you may see some across the northern tier. Not going to see that view line slip too far south into the U.S. though, but if across the northern tier, you may catch a glimpse of it if you do get any production of aurora. Now, we did see a 4.3 earthquake near Berkeley, California. That's near San Francisco. You guys are prepared for quakes like that, so I'm sure it didn't do a whole lot of damage, but I'm sure you felt some shaking. At least some of you. If you did and you're watching this video, let me know down in the comments if you felt that. From a lunar standpoint, we are on our way up out of new moon status, which happened yesterday, 0.5% waxing crescent. And look at this, harvest moon time, folks. October the 6th, that is the next full moon. The first full moon in October, of course, is the harvest moon, and less than 5 hours until the autumnal equinox and the official arrival of calendar fall. So by any standard, we will be in fall later this afternoon. Welcome fall, and y'all, that is the show for today. Got to get you the answer though to the IQ question, see if you got it right. What weather typically accompanies an Alberta clipper? And the answer is snow. Alberta clippers are low pressure systems that originate in Alberta, and they move rapidly to the south and southeast. Sometimes they get pretty far south into the US, but typically they kind of go across the northern tier. They bring a cold front. Cold air follows an Alberta clipper. Gusty winds come out ahead of that, and you see a lot of wind and gusts with that, and you generally see snow because it's cold. They're coming out of their cold source systems, and they bring cold air down, and you see snow along and with an Alberta clipper typically. And you've heard of other things like Saskatchewan screamers or Manitoba maulers or blue northers. We'll take a look at those some other time. But that is an Alberta clipper, folks. And also on this day in history in 1862, U.S. President Abraham Lincoln issued the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation declaring that enslaved people in Confederate states would be free as of January the 1st, 1863. And now you know history, and now you know the weather. And that's it for the show today, folks. I've had a good time. Hope you have as well, and we'll hopefully see you back tomorrow. In the meantime, Cold Rain reminding you the weather runs 24/7, but I got you covered right here, right now, 4814. Take care, everybody, and have a wonderful day.